What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another special episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. We're doing a live $15 draft on drafters.com. It's a best ball championship draft. We're doing their Drafters $1,000,003 contest. First place. John, do you know how much first place is for this contest?
I do not offhand, no.
It is a cool $500K. Essentially, there's going to be how many people? There's going to be 186,000 entrants in this thing. If you place in the top 28K, you'll double your money. So basically, trying to finish in that top 28K. I don't know what percentile that is. That's maybe the top like 15, 20%, something like that. So that's where we're at. But welcome, John. We're going to have fun tonight. We are drafting in the well, you got the 101. So I'm going to let you take it over here. The draft's about to start right now. So what do you got here? 101.
No words needed. I think it's, I'm interested in CD, and I don't have a lot of CD shares, but I have a hard time taking anyone over McCaffrey.
Yeah,
he's old. I think his downside is he's old, and he's got a lot of miles under him, and there is a lot of a running back is amazing, and then all of a sudden they're not. So I think there's definitely more downside baked into him this year than typical, but. You're up.
Ja'Marr Chase, you were talking before the show started. I need more. I'm not sure my exposure's in the $15 contest. I'm going to pull them up, but I was very, very light on Joe Burrow in the $2 contest. I'm just curious. I just want to see how I'm doing here. I do have a healthy. Well, I needed some Ja'Marr Chase here. I've only done 23 of these drafts, so I need more Ja'Marr Chase in these, but my Joe Burrow exposure is looking like 1. So I'm going to probably aggressively take Joe Burrow and kind of build out a Bengals thing. But for you, so like McCaffrey, the nice thing about taking McCaffrey, and don't get me wrong, I think CeeDee Lamb is worth the 101 if you want to try some CeeDee Lamb 101s. But the nice thing about McCaffrey is like you only need 5 running backs on your build. Like you're gonna have a good time hammering the other positions because basically if your team, you have to think about it. Like if your team's going to win the 500K, CMC's going to crush. He's going to be the top 1 or 2 running backs, and you just need to find one other guy to get you like 10 to 15 points per week. Yes. So he does allow you a really nice roster flexibility, which I think is very key. And I think where you're set up too, where McCaffrey goes, we love the receivers at the 2-3 turn. So it's very easy to start that build with you.
100%. I love Devontae Smith. I love Cooper Kupp. I love DJ Moore. I'm reaching for a few of those names a little bit at that 2-3 turn, but obviously they're not going to make it back to me at 4 or 5 turns. So I've just taken my favorites. But yeah, there's a host of receivers that and speaking of stacking, I think there's pretty often when I'm in the one spot, I notice either Ayuk or Debo is there, and you maybe don't want to go full 49er, but that was the best offense in the league last year, and theoretically could be again this year. So that's an exciting offense to invest in.
So are you more like if Debo and Ayuk are there for you, are you inclined to like continue to build out that 49er stack, or since you already have CMC, is there one guy that you think pairs better with CMC if you had to choose one?
That's a great question. I don't have a brilliant answer, but I think I'd probably go Ayuk just simply because if I have both of them there, I would take Ayuk because I have him a little higher on my board than Samuel personally. But I don't know. I feel like they're both very worthy of a second round, early third round pick.
Yeah, and I kind of struggle with taking Ayuk where he goes. I think it's a little early for Ayuk for him to be a few picks ahead of Debo. I kind of view him as the same, but
sure,
I'm up to pick, and I have the decision between Ayuk, Evans, Debo, Malik Neighbors. I did want to shout out Breece Hall fell to the 12 hole. Breece Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs on team 12. So I'm torn here, man. Like I really struggle to pick between Ayuk and Samuel. I do like Mike Evans quite a bit. I don't have enough time to look at my player exposure, so gun to my head, I'm going Mike Evans just because I think he's got a lot to prove, and I think he's Mike Evans is still so good, man. Like in terms of best ball, he's going to have those 20, 30-point boom games. I think I prefer Debo in best ball just because he runs the ball and he can have those big touchdown games. So if I'm ranking them, I'm going to go Evans, Debo, Ayuk, probably. But man, if you get Debo here, it's wheels up. And
Oh,
hey,
no doubt, no
shout,
doubt.
shout out to Harris. Hope you're doing well, bud. But John, I'll let you take it away. You talk us through here. We miss on both 49ers.
And I'm better for it because I would have aggressively taken either one of them. Certainly not both, but I take, I'm very anti-Neighbors, just ADP wise. I think he's fantastic. I don't love taking him this early. But Smith, Kupp, and DJ Moore are some of my favorite players in the draft. I think I'm going to definitely take Kupp.
That was wide receiver 17 off the board. So that feels really good value for Kupp. I'm with you on Neighbors. I think he looks better as a wide receiver 3. So, like, if he's there for me at 28, that's where I like to take him.
Yeah.
I don't like him positionally as my wide receiver 2, though.
He's not way behind ADP, but this is the furthest I think I've seen him fall in quite some time.
Oh, yeah. And
he really never makes it out of the second round, from what I can remember.
I don't have any Neighbors shares in the $15 contest just because I think it's a tough click.
It's a scary, that second round is such an important round. It's obviously there's, we expect him to bust, but there's a lot of boom factor there too. That's the reason his ADP is so high.
So I got a tough one, DK or DJ. I'm going to go with DK Metcalf here, but I'm curious what Harris thinks there in the chat. I know he's a DJ Moore guy. I like DK Metcalf, one, because I think he's what you're looking for in best ball. I know DJ Moore is too, but my concerns with DJ Moore it's more with the Bears offense. It's going to be kind of the Seattle Seahawks style offense. They got the Shane Waldron offensive coordinator from Seattle. And I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous about a rookie quarterback drafting a wide receiver like DJ Moore. I think he can pay off, especially for me with my build. A wide receiver 3 looks pretty good for DJ Moore. But what I like about the Seahawks offense is it feels like they have, like, in case of emergency, pulled a Sam Howell trigger, and he's not afraid to come in and sling it, So I think he's got, like, I think all Seattle Seahawks players have this really nice safety to them. Whereas if something happens to Geno, cool. They have Sam Howell, who has starting experience, and he was able to float some guys in fantasy last year. So I'm willing to take a DK Metcalf. I like JSN. I think I'm fine with Lockett and some of the running backs there. But
hey, listen, if Caleb Williams goes down, one phone call and Mitch Trubisky is in a Bears uniform again. So they have a great option too, Kyle. Come on.
I don't know about that. I think it's –
I'm being way too silly. But speaking of being silly, look at our friend in the 12 hole, Mr. Hash Browns.
4 RBs. Okay, he's already dead. He drafted a player that won't start for him. So one thing too, like, I was very low. Like, in the $15 contest, I'm at 1 click each for DK and DJ Moore. So as we continue to do these, I'm going to try and make sure I get exposures to both. But if I move my filters to all contests, I had been clicking a ton of DJ Moore lately, and I'm actually lighter on DK Metcalf across the board. So DJ Moore, like, especially when, again, I think positional value is, like, I want to continue to hammer that because DJ Moore as your wide receiver 3 feels like a cheat code. Wide receiver 2 is like fair value. So that's kind of where I'm at with how I think about these things. But man, 4 running backs in a row, John, would you, like, is that like a nightmare scenario? Like, what?
You mentioned that Cooper Kupp was like the 17th receiver taken. In that world, 4 running backs in a row is kind of a kiss of death because the chances of you pulling a couple solid receivers together now gets really, really slim because everybody just took all the good receivers.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's an incredible amount of talent in the NFL, but all the true number ones are gone before he picks again.
I'll be very interested to see if he clicks on any more running backs because positional value wise, like, he only needs, like, none of them have the same bye. He only needs, if his basketball team's going to smash, he only needs those 4 guys. So I hope he doesn't add one. He's probably going to click 1 more running back, but I hope he doesn't add 2 because then he's like dead for sure. He needs to start taking shots at receiver.
What's hilarious, I mean, I guess this is, kind of par for the course, but after his 4 in a row. Nobody has taken one here this round. Like,
yeah, there's a good little drop off here.
there is Henry should have went a little later.
Which
Even Kieran.
I really like Pacheco. I think I like ETN as well, but I'm going to continue the wide receiver thing that I got going here. I would have loved if T. Higgins, he's got a weird range in the 4th round where sometimes he falls back. But I think now that he's signed his franchise tender, he's going to continue to move up. But I'm going to give myself an out. If I don't get Joe Burrow, I'm going to do that Commanders thing that we've been kind of, I think we talked about it the other day where I had a nice Commanders stack that lined up really well.
You dirty boy. You love your Manders stacks this week.
John, I was looking at it. Like, can you name Terry McLaurin's quarterbacks the last 3-4 years?
You want to play that game with DJ Moore and start slapping yourself for why you're drafting him so low?
No,
I can't. I think potentially. Did he play with Kirk Cousins?
I think
he was a rookie.
He missed Kirk.
Then he's played with some very, arguably some of the worst in the league.
So
I couldn't name him offhand.
I'm going to tell you this: Terry McLaurin has had 1,000 yards straight for 4 seasons. His career high in touchdowns was his rookie year with 7, but I'm going to give him 1,100 to 1,200 yards and probably 5-6 touchdowns this season. So he's as consistent as they come. And his quarterbacks in the last 3-4 seasons, we're talking Carson Wentz was there for a little bit, Taylor Heineke, Alex Smith.
Heineke. Disrespectful of me to forget Heineke.
We're talking some bottom of the barrel guys here. And I just think the talent of Jaden Daniels, who knows? He's not going to be the most efficient passer, Jaden Daniels, that is, but he's going to put some big plays on the board for Terry. And
absolutely.
Hollywood Brown usually isn't here, which I find interesting, but I kind of want to build out that Mike Evans, Chris Godwin thing. And I'm actually like, Chris Godwin's one of the guys that I've been a fan of for a very long time. And I think the reports are of him moving back into the slot more this offseason excite me. So I'm going to pass on Hollywood Brown, who normally I would take ahead of Godwin. But because of the way I'm building my team here, 5 receivers, I got Evans and Godwin. All of a sudden, I have it out with Baker Mayfield, Cade Otton. I might even get Rachaad White on this team. I don't know.
I mean, Baker skyrockets to the top of your list all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be aggressive on him. But our guy Aiden in the chat says, can't lie, I'm loving the first 4 QBs this year. And that's something that I kind of wanted to talk about. I don't know if we've shed much light on it, but do you remember last year where the first couple quarterbacks were being drafted?
Way higher, yeah.
End of round 2, early round 3.
I remember a lot of like Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts stacks at the end of like the 2-3 turn.
A lot of people were pulling Kelsey, Mahomes, Lamar, Mark Andrews, Jalen Hurts, and whether it's AJ Brown or Devonta Smith. Like a lot of quarterbacks were going in like pick 20 to 29. I think there were maybe 3 of them. And now we're getting a full round to 2 round discount on the highest scoring position players.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a really big value. So to me, it's interesting. Like the round 4 pulls at quarterback, like I'll take Allen, Lamar, Hurts when I have something lined up. Otherwise, I'm very much into that pocket that I like from kind of like Kyler Murray to Tua. Like there's so many good ones there where you can just grab 2 guys late. So there's kind of 2 ways to do it. You either grab one of those early guys round 4, or you wait for that kind of sweet pocket in like the 9th, 10th, 11th round. And like we were pulling up the slow drafts that I have earlier. Like Jared Goff was 20 picks past ADP. Like that's a really, really sweet value that late. So quarterback strategy is a big thing this year. And our guy Hash Browns grabs a falling Mahomes at 60 and stacks him with Rashee Rice, which is probably the earliest I've seen Rashee Rice go.
And how many receivers does he have that will be playing weeks 1 through 4, 5?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. He probably should have. And Xavier Worthy went a little bit higher than normal, so that is difficult. I did miss on Rachaad White, but curious to see how Hash Browns gets out of that hole But our guy Harris says, I feel like the CJ Stroud strat is going too early for my liking. And I agree. I have not been clicking a lot of CJ Stroud, and something's off there, man. Like Nico Collins in the second, Stephon Diggs in the third, Tank Dell in the fourth, and CJ Stroud goes sixth. It doesn't add up to me. There's something off there with that.
Yeah, I hate how high all those Texans are going. It's frustrating.
Man, I'm up to pick, and I get a fallen Calvin Ridley, which I don't love. But I got some interesting stats I could talk about for Calvin Ridley that could be really good with Tennessee. So I'm going to do so with Calvin Ridley. If you had to guess who had the highest average depth of target last year in the NFL, who would you guess?
Calvin Ridley.
For quarterbacks, my bad.
Oh, a depth of target. Sorry. I guess it's going to be Will Levis. I would not have guessed that before kind of being prompted a little bit, but I would have maybe said, that's a tough question. I don't have a great answer.
So you take a Kenneth Walker there, which I like quite a bit. And then what are you running through here? There's a lot of running backs, a lot of tight ends falling, Ladd McConkey falling.
Yeah. I don't do a lot of Ladd, but I just needed a receiver.
I think we're about a month away from Ladd McConkey being a 5th round pick.
Oh, I don't expect him to fall. I don't think I'm never maximally comfortable taking rookie receivers unless I just have this ridiculous belief in them. But Ladd has a chance to be receiver 1 on a team that isn't going to pass maybe as much as they have in the past. But anytime you can be a receiver 1 or a receiver 2, that's super valuable.
He's on one of the faller lists in drafters this week. He's down 2 spots, almost 2% down, which I find curious. I'm not sure why he's falling, but he is. But I'm going to go to my ADP here. I'm not taking Evan Ingram, which I kind of think Evan Ingram, a lot of his spike weeks at the end of last year came from the absence of Christian Kirk. I don't expect him to be a top 5 tight end this year. But John, I'm stuck with Alvin Kamara versus JSN. Dude, I'm going 7 receivers off the bat here, and
you're really getting into it.
Dude, I have so many outs. I can do Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow. I can do Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield. I can do DK, JSN, and Geno, maybe. We got some fun outs there. I can also tack on Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels, and some of his guys. But we'll see, man. I've never done 7 receivers straight. It looks like I'm the only one to do so. But that's a freaking fun group. I might be done at that receiver position. And I can start to hammer running backs. But I wanted to get back to Harris's comment on CJ Stroud. Have you been clicking on CJ Stroud much?
Only when he falls, and he doesn't fall much. I refuse to take him before round 7.
And I have seen him dip in the 7th round. Overall, in my projections, he came out as QB 11. He just doesn't add enough as a rusher for me. And I give me Dak Prescott, give me Kyler Murray, give me Joe Burrow, give me Jordan Love. I'll take all of those quarterbacks over CJ Stroud. You can get those guys in the 8th, 9th round. And for the price you have to pay for CJ Stroud, I think it only makes sense if you have, Diggs and Nico, which I think this guy does. Yeah, he's got Diggs and Nico, so I'm fine with that. But if I were him, I might have maybe sent him around the corner just to see what could happen. But I think I'm a little concerned. I don't see CJ Stroud as like a top 5 QB. I think he's more around QB 10, 11, 12. And in that case, I'm buying the guys in the 8th, 9th round who I think have a little bit more to offer with a value. But hey, we're moving into the 8th round here. John's working with two running backs. He's got CMC and Kenneth Walker. Receivers are Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith, and Ladd McConkey. He's got the Jalen Hurts stacked with Devonta. And then you got a nice Dalton Kincaid pull, who I have not pulled a lot of. I do need to get more Dalton Kincaid going forward. But you have a nice, well-balanced start, and I think you're going to probably like the running backs at your turn.
Oh, yeah. Definitely going to grab a running back here and hopefully a receiver.
So if you're new to the drafters and the best ball, there's a really sweet pocket. Like you're going to see now, basically from George Kittle on here, only 2 receivers have been selected. You're going to see a lot of green, a lot of running backs selected in the 8th, 9th round. You'll see some quarterbacks get pulled off the board. The receivers are kind of washed up, like Lockett, Palmer, Shakir, Rashid Shaheed, Romeo Dobbs. Like a lot of these guys, their value is not quite there. And a lot of teams are going to start to pivot to these running backs. And we did see Hash Browns here at the 12 hole. He grabbed Sutton and Curtis Samuel. So he knows what he needs to do. He's trying to correct the overpaying at running back. But we're moving and grooving here.
Through 7 rounds, there are 4 teams, I think, that had at least 5 receivers.
What you can start 4 of them, and I think that's a huge value.
For sure. It's just you talk about the receiver wasteland. That's why, I think, right?
Because we're officially at that point where all the receivers are dried up. I have a debate coming up here where do I send Joe Burrow around the corner and try to get him at 100? If I don't get Burrow, I could put Jaden Daniels with Terry McLaurin, or I could continue to draft running backs here. I think I'm probably going to roll the dice just because running backs are going right now. Jonathan Brooks, Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard. I'm not sure I love anybody here. I could build another. I could just take the whole Seattle Seahawks receiver room and be done at receiver, which is tempting as hell. Man, oh man. I'm gonna grab Raheem Mostert just because I think as long as he's healthy, I know he's the starting running back and he's getting fantasy points. But John, I'll let you take it away here at the turn.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Brooks.
That was who I was debating between.
And I'm gonna go Romeo Dobbs.
Okay. Harris says he likes the Curtis Samuel pick. I'm all in on Curtis Samuel. I actually think he should be taken ahead of. I think Curtis Samuel should be up here with Ladd McConkey. I think he's better than Jordan Addison this year. I think he's better than Brian Thomas. I think he's better than Jameson Williams. Maybe JSN if he has a breakout, but I think Curtis Samuel's ADP is a bit off. I'd rather take Curtis Samuel over Keon Coleman. If you had to tell me I'm taking a Bills receiver at 66, I'm taking Keon Coleman there. But I do get Joe Burrow to come back to me, so I should probably just take that sweet stack and try to build out, we'll talk about the tight end there at some point. I'm smitten on the tight end situation there. But we'll grab Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and hopefully I can get many boom games from the 2 of them.
Oh, you will.
Maybe even a little Chase Brown action on this team could work. I think that's fine. But this is that pocket that I'm telling you about. The Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Joe Burrow. Like, if any of these guys are top 5 QBs, we're not going to be surprised. And the price you have to pay for a CJ Stroud there at 67, it's just a bit rich, man. Like we were able to grab, some receivers. I got some receivers. You got a running back and a receiver there. Like we got guys to fill our flex position with that I feel pretty good about. So I'm excited to wait on quarterback for this 9-10. And honestly, like it keeps kind of running, dude. Like the quarterbacks, like Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Tua. You're in line for a Justin Herbert backdoor stack, although he's got the same buy as Hurts. But
yeah, I was thinking that up a little bit, and I was because I like Josh Palmer a lot more. Like I think like Josh Palmer and Ladd McConkey could easily have a very similar like fantasy production profile, but the bye week situation. I think I'm just going to go with the naked McConkey.
And I think McConkey, that once the pads come on and we start getting the training camp reports, like we're already getting it, that he is the number 1 receiver for, like we're already getting that. And I don't think it's hitting people yet until we see it in training camp. Not going to surprise me if he's a 5th round pick come July.
There's always, what do you think? I mean, when training camp kind of opens and those first 2 or 3 reports come out, like that's probably when you see the most movement on these boards. Is that true, or would you disagree?
The most movement happens right after the draft when these contests open.
Sure.
But yeah, that first
the ADPs are also like not stable at that point. Like,
yeah,
no, you're right. Of course.
I mean, that first week of training camp, if we get a blurb about Jaylen Warren getting more work than Najee Harris, man, that's going to move him up around. If we're seeing, Rachaad White losing first team work to Bucky Irving, that's going to send him down 2 rounds. Like, first initial reports are very, very important. I'm up to pick here. I thought Brian Robinson might fall to me, my man, but it did not happen. Still have not been able to get the Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler duo, but I'm going to continue to build out my Cincinnati thing. Chase Brown did show some nice receiving chops last year. I think Zach Moss is a guy that I like a lot, but I think Chase Brown does have a package in that offense where he's going to score some games for me. And I honestly, I can't be too choosy with only 2 running backs on my roster through the 10th round.
Where are you on? I mean, we all know Kieran Williams is amazing, but where are you on, like, if Kieran is healthy all year, how does Blake Corum do? Like the worst case Blake Corum scenario, basically.
The worst case for Blake Corum is he's getting 5 to 6 carries a game and a catch per game, and he's only getting you 6-7 points. Essentially, he's Kenneth Gainwell is the worst scenario. So,
so if his downside is pretty bad if Kieran plays all year.
Correct. And I mean, I don't think Blake Corum is amazing. Like, especially like in the data study that I did, he was like he was among the worst running backs of every stat that I charted.
Do you like Josh Downs at all? Because I keep clicking him.
I love Josh Downs. He's a really good receiver.
It's good to know. I am clicking with good intention.
Like Josh Downs, amazing slot receiver, and he benefited with Gardner Minshew. He had like an ankle thing and up, and he lost some of his steam last season.
He was a rookie last year, right?
Correct.
And he was absolutely fantastic. He had like some of the best like efficiency stats, and he maybe didn't have like the best like fantasy stats, raw numbers, but he had like really good like statistics, like from what I remember seeing.
I mean, weeks 1 through 8, I'll kind of reverse it from week 8 to 1. 14, 23, 13, 15, 5, 13, 7. That's what you could be in. Some games are with Anthony Richardson. And I also think the thing with the Colts receivers is, man, like, I think you should be willing to take a Michael Pittman, even though he's going up what feels like early. You should be willing to take a Pittman, a Downs, an Adonai Mitchell, a Jelani Woods, because we're going to see Joe Flacco at some point this season. I think Anthony Richardson's style of play, hamstring, shoulder, there's a lot of things in play with him taking hits too. We're going to see Joe Flacco play at some point, and that's where a guy like Josh Downs is just going to soak up 8-10 targets per game. So I'm very intrigued with Josh Downs. I think he's a very good player. He's on an exciting young offense. I do think he's the team's starting slot receiver. So for you,
love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for you,
I wanted to hear.
he's gonna mix in there with Ladd McConkey and Dobbs and be your wide receiver 3 flex some games. But man, his advanced data looked really good.
Yes,
into it. He's a good player. But I was able to grab Kendre Miller there at the 124. He is a guy that I am very, very I was very excited about him last year, and it didn't pay off because I was drafting a lot of Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller just because Alvin Kamara was going to be suspended. Unfortunately, neither of those guys paid off.
Yeah,
they just didn't do anything in that first month. But I think I don't know if we talked about it off air, but Alvin Kamara, he's not getting any younger. He's shown significant signs of decline in a lot of metrics. And I think Kendre Miller is an ascending player. And I'm willing, me being a 0 running back team, I got Mostert, Chase Brown, Kendre Miller. I'm looking for home run swings here. And I do think Kendre Miller is going to be a guy that works. He has like a role in the offense. And I mean, if he looks really good, like they got to continue to give him the ball. So I'll continue to take Kendre Miller when I can. And I took him over Blake Corum.
Yeah.
But we're moving into the 12th round. It looks like you're not getting Pat Fryermuth on your team in this one. And we have
Dalton Kincaid in round 5 is Pat Fryermuth insurance, Kyle. So I've been getting sniped on Fryermuth a lot. I think I have this expectation that I can get him in the 12th and 13th, and
those days are done, man.
those days seem to be done, and that's fine. I've been saying all these nice things about him, so somebody's been listening, I think.
The Athletic. Are you familiar with The Athletic?
Yeah.
So I pay the $2 a month for The Athletic. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to grab Marshawn Lloyd here because he's really freaking good in my RB4. But there is an article out on The Athletic. It was one paragraph on all 32 teams, and the paragraph for the Steelers is all about Pat Fryermuth essentially being the wide receiver 2 for this team. And if you think about Arthur Smith, he's a running, he's a running coach, but he's had a lot of good history with tight ends, whether it was Jonnu Smith back in Tennessee. He's kind of messed around with us with Kyle Pitts, but I mean, he dialed up plays for Pitts. He dialed up plays for Jonnu Smith. There's a really good chance for Pat Fryermuth to be the number 2 target in the Steelers. And I think, John, you took my guy.
Sorry, brother.
Dude, I'm 7 receivers deep. I'm gobbling receivers here. But you do get the tricky Ricky, which I need to start probably clicking more of 12, 13 tier. And Taysom Hill off the board. He is hard to get your hands on these days.
Well, now I have McConkey, I have Burton, I have Pearsall. I feel like I have a fun stable of rookies.
Yeah.
One of those guys is going to pop, maybe 2. Probably not all 3, but I'll take it.
I'm going to grab a little Luke Musgrave a little early. I was kind of naked at tight end, and I do think there's a drop-off from Musgrave down to Henry, Otten, and some of these guys here.
Oh, yeah, there definitely is.
I do need to be cognizant, though, of my Baker Mayfield Tampa Bay stack. So I'm kind of lining that up next. I'm very light on running back. I got Mostert, Chase Brown, Kendre Miller, and Marshawn Lloyd. Can you – dude, we're Packer fans first, but my pre-draft data study on Marshawn Lloyd was he was one of the top 3 running backs in the draft class for me.
Right, and he was one of the top 3 or 4 guys drafted, right? Yeah, running back at least.
I think there's a chance that he's better than Josh Jacobs this year, and it might take the Packers a while to figure that out. But I think in best ball, you never know when Marshawn Lloyd's going to pop off. But the dude is very, very good. He can catch the ball. He's explosive. He's very slippery. I think there's a chance where Marshawn Lloyd, entering 2025, if Marshawn Lloyd's a 4th, 5th round pick, I would not be surprised, dude. Because I think he's lightning in a bottle, and the Packers don't owe Josh Jacobs anything next year. They can move on from him with very little dead cap. They're going to want to see what they have in Marshawn Lloyd at some point this year. And it sounds like everything, all the Packers beat writers and things have been saying, there was live training camp tweets, or OTA tweets. And they're like, oh my God, this guy is you can see the explosiveness there. They're not tweeting that about Josh Jacobs. So in a way, Marshawn Lloyd could be the new Aaron Jones kind of juice at the running back position for this team, and I'm willing to pay for it.
Yeah, that's a very optimistic take. I think, I think similar to Blake Corum, he's this absolutely fantastic talent. Probably you could argue got drafted to the absolute perfect team for his talent and his skill set, both Blake Corum and Marshawn Lloyd. And the only downside is they're stuck behind a legitimate bell cow.
I think there's one.
I think Jacobs has a lot of really interesting upside this year, just because he's averaged 20 touches a game, his entire career, his 5-year career, whatever it is. And I've said it before. I'm probably starting to sound like a broken record to you, Kyle, but I just think very few running backs outside of Derrick Henry faced, and maybe even CMC faced, constant 8-9, just stacked boxes, overloaded, defensive fronts. And I just think that's not going to be happening in Green Bay when you have a competent quarterback at work. and a plethora, an absolute motherload of receiving weapons.
And a much better offensive line. But I would say there's
a much better offensive scheme, arguably, too, right? I mean, I think we both agree the LaFleur offense is pretty interesting and above average at worst.
I think there's one difference, though, between Josh Jacobs and like a Kieran, like Sean McVay, he runs one running back to the ground. Matt LaFleur has always spread it out. He's always given two running backs the workload. He has consistently done that throughout his career. I mean, there's been the last 4 or 5 seasons, it's been A.J. Dillon, 200 carries, Aaron Jones, 200 carries. Like, he's willing to split the load a little bit more, whereas Sean McVay, it's like, I'm going to ride my running back until the wheels fall off. And then, you kind of have like a running back come in there and get 5, 6, 7 touches per game. So I think Marshawn Lloyd probably has a higher floor. Now, for Blake Corum to win, you need Kieran Williams to miss some games. And that's where he pays off.
Fuck! I wanted that stack. I probably should have taken Stafford instead of Pearsall, honestly. God dang it. Excuse my language.
You're still in the clear. I mean, Jalen Hurts, when you have a Jalen Hurts, man, and he's going to be the QB 1 or 2 on the season, your QB 2 is not very useful to you. Like you could probably wait.
Are you taking Otten here?
Don't not take him because of me. I would line him up if he's there just for the stack of it.
I can happily go with one of these receivers. I like Wilson and Bateman a lot.
You're too kind. I think he's a really good player.
It's kind of like you said with Hurts. Like, I have Kincaid as well at tight end, who I think is going to finish as the number 1 tight end. So I'm not like desperate here.
But I mean, that's one thing too, is when Aiden said he likes taking one of the first 4 QBs, I think when you do that in a best ball contest, I'm not taking a second QB until late. Like, I might take the falling Goff, the falling Tua, but you can wait for the Bryce Young, Derek Carr, Will Levis. I mean, you can even wait for Russell Wilson. Like, the first 9 weeks, 10 weeks are covered with your QB2 to get you through your bye with Jalen Hurts. I think when I'm drafting these guys, I'm like, yes, I'm taking Jalen Hurts because he's going to be the QB1. He's going to play 17 games and he's going to get me 25 points a game. It's going to be very hard for your QB2 to outscore Jalen Hurts. That might happen 3 times a year, But hey, we lined up the Tampa Bay backstack here. So I have a very light Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown stack, and I have the Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Cade Otton stack, which feels good. I'm going to try and get Jalen McMillan as my final wide receiver, but I need some tight ends. I need some running backs. I do have a tight end that I'm going to finish my room with, so I'm probably going to pivot towards running back and Jalen McMillan going forward. But just, I mean, dude, we're in the weeds of the draft here. Are there any running backs that you like clicking, especially this late?
As someone from Wisconsin, and who went to Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, I'm a big Braylon Allen fan because he's a former Badger. And there's been a little bit of hype about him in camp. I also really like Roschon Johnson. I just think he's a good player. I'm not obsessed with his situation. I also think Khalil Herbert's a good player. And he just went here a little bit ago. Dobbins is, he's just like scary. I don't know. I've been weirdly interested in Dameon Pierce to just kind of, he zagged as a rookie. He zigged as a second-year guy. All of a sudden, maybe he's just randomly zagging back or zigging back as a third-year player who just came off, an absolute terrible season for his pedigree. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're basically just like making up stories in your head to believe that these guys could be useful, basically.
I was so hot. Like, Dameon Pierce was one of my blind spots last year. I was taking him a lot, and his rookie season was so good. Like, he was a very good player. He was one of the best guys, yards after contact, like all the metrics he popped as a runner. But in comes the new head coach, DeMeco Ryans, the new offensive coordinator. They changed the offensive running scheme to more kind of zone running schemes, which is kind of what San Fran runs, and he struggled with that. And he picked up an ankle injury, and that allowed Devin Singletary to kind of come in and just take the show. But there's some early off-season reports about him working on his body and really studying the playbook and figuring things out. I mean, Joe Mixon is no spring chicken. Like if he goes down, we're looking at Dameon Pierce and Jawar Jordan being the top 2 running backs on the Texans depth chart.
And think about how high, we always complain and moan about how high the receivers for the Texans are going and how high Stroud is going. Obviously, people think this offense is going to be productive, right? What if Mixon goes down? What if everybody's totally healthy and Pierce just has these random, opportunities every once in a while, maybe blowout games, maybe, because that's not necessarily a great division that they're in. Like, I don't know. I like maybe we were a little high on him last year and maybe we're like a little low on him this year. You know how that goes. Yeah. It wouldn't be the first time it's happened.
Are you lining up Elijah Mitchell here at 192?
I'm not against it, but I'm really thinking I might just try to take best receiver, best tight end, and give myself a little depth at both of those positions because we're getting pretty close to the end here. But yeah, Mitchell is he's off my radar unless I have CMC. There you go. Decisions made for me. I like that.
So I finished off the Baker Mayfield stack. I got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and K. Dot. I have literally their top 4 pass catchers. I do think there's an opportunity for Trey Palmer to be of use, but with me going 7 straight wide receivers to start, I'm comfortable with 8 total wide receivers. I'm going to end up with probably 6 or 7 running backs and 3 tight ends. And hey, we got Rave in the chat tonight. Thoughts on Austin Eckler this year? And John just grabbed Derek Carr there. Did you have any stackage there? Just the value in Derek Carr is pretty ridiculous to me. I'll pull up his number.
Is Jawan Johnson going to come back, or are we kind of out on him right now?
I think I'm willing to start buying the dip on him right
now. Maybe I'll try to get him on the way back.
There's a chance he's on the PUP list to start the year. Like, we really don't have any information on the injury. The expectation is that he's going to be back for the regular season, but we literally have no information. The dude just had surgery this last week. So there's a very small chance we see him at training camp. And I think when he does return, he's probably going to, jump up 1 or 2 rounds. But I think, as he's starting to dip into the 200s, that's where I'll probably start adding him as my 3rd tight end. Definitely don't want him as my 2nd tight end. I think tight end 3 is. But I'm up to pick here. I'm basically just pounding running backs, but I'm going to be aggressive with what is, to me, a top 16 tight end, and I'm going to be done with position, and then I just hammer running backs the rest of the way. But I'm all in on Mike Gesicki this year, guys. I can talk about that more if you guys want to know more in the chat, but our guy Rave was wondering, thoughts on Austin Eckler this year, John? He's the guy that I've been willing to click because I think he's appropriately priced.
He's in that big string of running backs pretty much, right? I guess he's a little below that. I was thinking about that string in round 8, where it's 10 out of 12 running backs in that round. Yeah, I mean, of running backs, it starts to get a little shallow, and I think Eckler starts to look really, really good at that point.
So there's, you got a rookie quarterback, a running quarterback at that. You have to wonder how many times he's going to be willing to check down and throw to Eckler. But he did support Rachaad White back at Arizona State. I think he had 44 receptions in one of those seasons. So he can do it. And I just think Eckler, I really appreciate Austin Eckler. I think he's really smart. He's a fantasy figure in the community. And I think he does have something to prove. I'm willing to take Austin Eckler, especially when you get him as your RB3 or 4. Like, especially, when you need a running back in the 11th round, like, sign me up. I think he's a guy that if you go 0 running back, I'm starting Austin Eckler week 1 as my RB2. I think he's the value there. He's going to catch 3, 4, 5 passes. You have Cliff Kingsbury, who's a veteran play caller in the NFL. I know he didn't have much success with Arizona, but his offenses did produce fantasy points and numbers. So I'm willing to take Austin Eckler there. I think he's probably looking at 8 to 10 carries per game and his usual 3-4 catches per game as well. So I think he's a high floor PPR play. And when you just you're in that sweet spot where you really need a running back. Eckler looks attractive.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah. Yeah. And I think typically people are, kind of punting running back a little, more often than not. Like I just said it earlier in the pod here, but there were 4 teams in our draft that went five out of 7 in the first 7 rounds with 5 receivers. So, most people are going receiver heavy. At least half the draft seems to go receiver heavy. You went super duper max heavy. So yeah, Eckler becomes really attractive in those situations as an RB2, RB3, if you're doing a little more RB heavy and up top, even an RB4, he's a lot more fun. But
I also think like he left such a bad sour taste in our mouths from last year. He was a first round pick. He didn't play healthy the whole season, and the Chargers were just god awful. I think he's mispriced probably by a round or 2. I think he should probably be drafted in that Jalen Warren, Zach Moss, James Conner tier. That's probably where his true value lies. Because hey, if you told me Eckler plays 16, 17 games, he's going to be a really at that value. So
watch me dirty stack these Jawan Johnson, A.T. Perry, and just build a Saints stack out of thin air, Kyle. Yes.
Jawan Johnson pulls become good, especially as tight end 3. And yeah, Rave agrees. He thinks he's a great value. Rave, I do a lot of best balls. I do them all day long. I do a lot of the $2 all day long, and I sprinkle in the 15s when I can. But I have yet to, especially on drafters, where it's a season-long accumulation of fantasy points. There is no playoffs. You're just grabbing a guy, and you're going to get his week 1 through 17 scores. I've been trying to grab Brian Robinson and Eckler because I think there's going to be a lot of that situation, and I can't find a way to do it. But John, these running backs are completely dust. I am so screwed.
Always.
I'm gonna take I'm desperate. What if Keaton Mitchell comes back? What if Derrick Henry goes down?
I love that one.
No. But we're moving into the final rounds here. John, let's recap.
In your situation, Kyle, I really like AJ Dillon too. Like you've
Jacobs
kind of a weird, like if you went RB shallow, or you kind of punted RB or whatever. Like you've got, I don't know, in the weirdo bizarro scenario where Jacobs goes down, all of a sudden you have the entire backfield for the Packers, and we know that's a huge, heavy run team, heavy RB involvement team. That feel, in just this weird, and you could get him in round 20 probably too, but like it's just like a, I don't know, bizarro situation that would all of a sudden you have a great team, but that would make your biggest weakness all of a sudden this incredible strength.
In a vacuum, AJ Dillon's a terrible pick, but I think in my he makes sense on my team as my final walk-off pick. But our guy Rave says the Madison fall off is crazy. I've seen you click Alexander Madison a few times. What kind of positive light can you shed on Madison?
Well, I'm picking him in round 20 pretty exclusively. I think I've maybe got one round 19 snag in a pretty RB aggressive draft, but if I go kind of lighter on running back, I really, he's the locked in RB2 in Las Vegas. Like he's with some pedigree of production in his past, and he's not really that old, and he doesn't have a million miles under him. And he doesn't have, he was injured a bit last year, but he doesn't have this ridiculous injury history. He's got to be one of the more known and well-established, not over-the-hill age-wise commodities in this group. I think Kenneth Gainwell and Samaje Perine kind of maybe and I suppose Miles Sanders fits that a little bit, though I think Sanders has been injured a lot in his past. But I don't know. Those are – I just think Madison has this mix of history, production, and he's got a locked-in role, potentially a locked-in role. I know you like Dylan Lobb, so maybe he doesn't have a locked-in role. But
I think if for Madison to hit, you need Zamir White to go down. But there's a chance Madison is the third down back week 1. it's hard to trust a rookie, especially a guy out of New Hampshire that, competition and pass blocking and things. You're probably going to trust Alexander Madison more. And yeah, I mean, if Zamir White goes down, we saw the Madison numbers, like they looked really good to start the year. He just kind of trailed off. But I'm here with my final spot. I do like the AJ Dillon angle. I could back up Marshawn Lloyd, or I could lean into the Ravens and grab, I have Keaton Mitchell. I could grab Rasheen Ali, who's a promising rookie. They do have Justice Hill there as well. I did see Justice Hill go already, though. And I know that's a name you've been clicking. So I'm curious, like if Derrick Henry goes down, what does the Ravens backfield look like? But hold your nose. I'm taking AJ Dillon. Don't tell my mom.
There you go.
But you send it home here with the Mr. Irrelevant of the draft.
Now, I just said some nice things about Alexander Madison, but there's a name that I just have loved forever. I've just got a little tiny baby mini Eagles stack. Ooh. So why not complete it with a little Kenneth Gainwell?
All right, you can't go wrong with Kenneth Gainwell. He's reliable. They trust him. He helped them win a Super Bowl. He's a good player, just not a great player. But overall, man, let's recap the team here. Let's take it from the top. What do we think?
I always feel a little risky coming out with just two quarterbacks, but I do expect both these guys, as long as they're healthy, to be the starter this year. I think that's a way more debatable with Derek Carr, obviously, but I think he's gonna survive. Running backs, you start with McCaffrey. I feel like you can kind of slow play it a little bit, and I love to gobble up running backs typically a little faster than you do, Kyle. But I love McCaffrey. I think Kenneth Walker. You've said some good things about Kenneth Walker in the past. I think he's a little touch underrated. I think he should be in the tier. He's the top of the tier, that really long tier, like 7 and 8. And I think he should maybe be in the bottom of the tier above him. So yeah. I like the value I get there, even if it's at ADP. Jonathan Brooks is, I don't know. You can make an argument he's the biggest boom bust, I don't know. You can make an argument that he's got like the most upside of any running back to some degree, because it's just such an unknown. He's coming off an injury, but he's also got this ridiculous risk baked in because of the injury, because Carolina's probably not going to be great. I've said before, probably on this pod, definitely to you, Jerome Ford is someone I think he's going to be the RB1 in that offense. I just don't, Chubb is the best player on that team, maybe even, but I don't expect him to play this season, and that's where my value there goes. And I think my receiving core, I don't know. I don't love McConkey if you scroll down, but I just think I have so much depth there. I turned it into a strength as the draft went on, and I love Cooper Kupp and Devontae Smith at the top. Got to pair Devontae with Hurts, who I think I got a decent value, and I was one pick away at like 197, 198, whatever. I got sniped on Stafford, but regardless, I'm a naked Cooper Kupp has never done anyone wrong before, and I personally believe Dalton Kincaid is going to finish as the tight end 1 this year. And I also personally believe he's going to finish as the number 1 fantasy producer in the receiving game in the Buffalo offense. So he's going to finish ahead of all of the receivers, essentially, is what I mean by that. And James Cook, I think, could potentially outscore him overall, but I do not as a receiver. So I think I'm really obsessed with Dalton Kincaid. I've said a lot on this pod that I think waiting on tight end is a great idea, but there's one guy, if he's around ADP, I'm always pretty much grabbing right now, and it's Kincaid.
So I really like your team. Robbie likes it as well.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
I wanted to note your running back build is like chef's kiss. You got CMC, man. You're locking down running back 1.
Yeah.
So you just need one guy. Okay, cool. It could be Kenneth Walker. The week he pops off for some big touchdown runs. Great. But then you got Jonathan Brooks and Chuba Hubbard. You're essentially locking in a low-end RB2 every week, especially to start the year. And that could turn into a running back 1. So you're getting something that could bud and grow and bear fruit.
I really like Chuba. He was like a ubiquitous pickup across like all my normal fantasy teams last year, traditional fantasy teams, whatever the right word is there. But Yeah, he's a big Ford, Hubbard, and Kenny Gainwell. I couldn't be happier with my last three running backs. Like, I know they're not necessarily the sexiest names, but I just love all three of those guys for.
Jonathan Brooks coming off an ACL tear. He's not going to come out and get 15, 20 touches per game. He's maybe going to get that by November, December. That's why you take Jonathan Brooks where he goes. But you're kind of shelving him for the late season, and then you pair him with Jonathan Ford, who, yes, I think Nick Chubb's going to play. I don't think he's going to play well. You're getting Jerome Ford maybe for the first month or two where he's the lead back, and even when Chubb returns, he's still going to have some kind of base role position.
What week do you think Chubb returns? If you gun to your head, you have to say a week.
So a normal he tore his ACL, his knee blew up, whatever, week 2 last year. That usually puts you 9 months out from there. So 9 months out from September, he's going to be lucky to be ready for training camp. I'm hearing he's not going to be playing until like week 10, and I think I heard that about a month ago. So obviously. Yeah. Things can change very quickly, but last I heard is he is not like optimistically week 10. Like that would be like a very positive scenario for him, because you say a normal ACL, but we all know that was beyond a normal knee injury. So before you would have answered, I would have said week 8 to 10. I would expect those reports to be like, yeah, Nick Chubb's coming back. And then, yeah, week 8 to 10 is when he can hit the field, but he's just not going to be himself this season. So
right, yes, exactly. The gap between Nick Chubb and just getting back on the field is going to be massive.
You're Ford for he's going to be a 1A role while Nick Chubb's away. But when Nick Chubb does return, you're probably getting like a Jalen Warren type workload, where 12 carries and a few catches. So I like Jerome Ford quite a bit, but I love your running back, the design of it. Like, you have early season covered at RB2, and you have some late guys that could blossom there. So that feels really good. Receivers are really good. I love the top 5. I think those are going to be your primary scorers. And then, yeah, you're going to have spike weeks from Burton, Pearsall, Wilson, and Perry just kind of chipping in when they can. And then, yeah.
I don't take a lot of Perry or Juwan Johnson, but just to say I stacked both my QBs. It's going to make me sleep a little better tonight.
I will never take a naked A.T. Perry. I will only do it when I have Derek Carr. But there was the offensive coordinator there had a report where he's like, they were talking about A.T. Perry, and they're like, what does he need? What does he need to work on? Everything is what he said. So I think Perry is the number 3. He's got a lot to work on apparently. But I think there is a huge. We probably need to talk about tight end on the drafters format, because the difference between a top 5 tight end and then like what I did, I'm trying to piece together a tight end 10. Essentially, is what I'm doing.
Right. Exactly. Same.
The difference between a top 5 tight end and tight end like 10 to 15 is probably like 50 to 100 points. And in a season-long accumulation, like, you need a top 5 tight end. Otherwise, you're not winning this contest. So I like the pull and the take on Dalton Kincaid. And you're going to have some weeks where Fant and maybe Juwan Johnson scores. So overall, it's a really fun build here in the 15. I think you placed in the top 28K with this team.
Listen, we're trying to buy a house, so we gotta get higher than that. But yes, that would be great. I'd be happy with that.
All right, I got the house, so we'll see if this team will pay.
You need a boat, Kyle. You don't have a boat.
I gotta get an addition. I gotta get a remodel on this one, because the room that I'm in right now.
You got to get work on the house. That's even better. Yeah.
My future master suite, and then I'll get an office in the back later. But
no, that's perfect.
So I know you mentioned not liking 2 QBs. I am very heavy 2 QB on this format. When I don't get a top 10-ish QB, I will draft 3 of them. But when I get a Joe Burrow, I'm like, yeah, Joe Burrow, my mindset is he's healthy this year. He's balling out. He's playing well. He's going to be a top 5 threat most weeks. He's going to be a top 10 QB by the end of the season. So I really only need one other QB. So I get Burrow and Baker Mayfield. The running back position, I'm going to, something's got to break right for this to happen. I'm banking on Raheem Mostert being my guy for the first month or 2 at least. And if he can play greater or longer, that's great. I do think Chase Brown, Kendra Miller, one of those guys will hit for me, hopefully. I talked up Marshawn Lloyd about as high as I could talk him up. I'm super ecstatic about Marshawn Lloyd. I think he could be a guy that helps me down the stretch. And then, hey, if something happens to Isaiah Pacheco, man, like, can you tell me who the Chiefs RB3 is?
No.
So whatever, he's there. He's just a body.
McKinnon, but your point stands.
McKinnon's a free agent. He's not signed.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They have the guy that plays. They have the rugby guy at RB3 right now.
Yep.
And then Keaton Mitchell is another guy coming off an ACL tear. But dude, if something happens to Henry, the Ravens, we're talking Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, and a rookie named Rasheen Ali. It could be pretty ugly there. So I'll take a stab at Mitchell with my light build there. And
you're getting into the create like auto-generated player names. Yeah.
If AJ Dillon scores for my team, something went wrong. But it could be good. You never know. He's just.
You're a Josh Jacobs injury away from having one of the trickiest teams in the field, one of the most dangerous teams in the field. Because this is what we've been waiting for.
This is the meat of the whole team. This receiver group is sick. Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf. Those are the three guys pulling the weight most of the way. My flex competition: Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, and JSN. Jalen McMillan's going to score maybe once or twice for this team, which would be nice. But I did
a little injury insurance.
Yeah, I did complete the mega Tampa Bay stack with Evans, Godwin, McMillan, and Otten below. I also have the DK Metcalf JSN thing. I was looking for Noah Fant there at one point, but it is what it is. I'm very happy with this wide receiver core. I think it's great. The bye weeks are fine. We're going to have a good time with this receiver group. And then tight ends, when I don't get a top 5, top 10 threat at tight end, I'm looking for a trio of guys that have some upside. I think Luke Musgrave could be a surprise top 10 tight end this year. Everybody loves the Packers offense. I just don't understand. He's going to be on the field more than the third and fourth wide receiver. He's going to be on the field a ton. He could be one of the biggest smashes at tight end. I think he should be being drafted where Pat Freiermuth goes. Maybe not as high as Pat Freiermuth, but right in that same tier for me. Cade Otton, just a reliable tight end there. And then I think Mike Gesicki's in for a big year. I think he's the starting slot receiver for the Bengals. I've shared the stats on the slot snaps before. Tyler
Boyd, big slot guy.
Tyler Boyd ran the most slot routes last year in the NFL, over 500 of them, if I recall. And they don't really put Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, those other receivers in the slot. I think there's going to be a chance for Mike Gesicki to be the leading slot receiver on this team. So it's a dicey draft with my running backs, but if Joe Burrow,
you have a lot of bodies though. You have a lot of rolls of the dice, if you will.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm right on two of those guys, say Kendre Miller and Chase Brown are the guy. That's all it takes.
I'm not wishing an injury on Josh Jacobs, especially as a Packer fan. In fact, I hope he plays the entire season. I think he could, if he can make it the whole year, I think he could scratch 2,000 scrimmage yards, 10, 12 plus TDs. I think he could have an insane statistical season. But I continue to think, looking at your team, you're one Jacobs injury away from one of the scarier teams in the field.
So Aaron Jones was injured last year, but 142 attempts for Jones, 178 for A.J. Dillon. That's about 320 carries between the two of them. The year before that, 213 carries for Aaron Jones, 186 for A.J. Dillon. The year before that, 187 carries for A.J. Dillon, 171 for Aaron Jones. The year before that, 201 carries for Aaron Jones, 119 for Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
Marshawn Lloyd's getting the ball is basically the bet. I think Matt LaFleur.
Jacobs could touch it 25 times a game, and there would still be touches available. It's like the Lions' offense to a degree, right? It's not necessarily that the players are similar in any way, but just like this is a running offense. This offense starts with the running game. I mean, every coach says they want to establish the run, but the Packers are establishing the run every week they play.
The Packers are a good team this year. I'm very excited about the Packers, but we don't need to get into that. Man, John, any final thoughts for the good people? Let's get out of here.
Drew Holiday, 2-time NBA champion. He's one of the I'm going to make the argument, and I'm not going to say any of the words about why, but I'm going to just say I think you could make a very strong case that he's one of the top 50 people on the planet in terms of just like humanity. But I'm so happy that he won his second NBA championship, and he deserves a shout out anytime I can give him one. So I'm doing it using this platform.
I know he was a great public figure in the Milwaukee area. He did a lot of great things. And it seemed like Milwaukee kind of blindly traded him without any heads up. So I feel bad about that, but I love Jrue Holiday. True or false, is he a Hall of Famer?
Can I just spew his resume from the top of my dome because I've seen it so many times recently? A gold medal in the Olympics, one of those. He's got 2 NBA championships. He's got he's 2-time All-Star, and he's made the top 10 defensive players in the NBA, all defensive team, either the first or the second team. He's made it 6 times in his career. So it's not the thickest resume in terms of certain accolades, but you know how hard championships are to come by. And he's got a gold medal, 2 NBA championships, played a couple years of college at UCLA, which I don't necessarily think they did anything super duper special, but obviously he was good. He's got a very impressive basketball pedigree. I think he's an absolute guarantee first ballot basketball Hall of Famer. Also, basketball Hall of Fame. I don't follow all sports Hall of Fames, but just from what I've heard, basketball Hall of Fame is a little more like it's not. It's Jrue Holiday is going to get in. You don't necessarily have to have like MVPs to make the basketball Hall of Fame.
Did he make some Olympic teams as well?
He's got a gold medal. He's got an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah, so he's
and he's going to be in this Olympics coming up this summer, I believe. I maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because of this recent run that could have changed, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be in this Olympics as well.
Yeah, dude. Very very happy for Jrue. Celtics, they I'm glad they got it out of the way. Like Tatum and Brown and the group needed it, so it was.
You're either a Celtics fan or you hate them, and I know we're kind of on the other side of that. We're going against them in the playoffs once in a while, but the sustained success they've had since they've drafted Tatum and Brown, this was, expected, I think, and I think they're going to win more. I don't know how many they're going to get, but I think Tatum and Brown are not done.
Yeah, it's the new formula to beat, I think, going forward. Getting 2 of those young stars wrapped up on some big deals and having some pieces like Jrue and the dude from the Spurs, Derek White.
Yeah,
very good this year too. So and then some veteran centers. So
Derek White deserves a shout out because he lost his 2 front teeth, and he was on my very excellent second place fantasy basketball team and one of my late round gems.
But very exciting. We'll see if we can do this next Wednesday as well. Maybe we have some guests with us. But thank you so much for you guys. You guys hanging out with us for the last hour and 8 minutes. Very appreciative of your time. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you're new. We love you guys. Thank you so much. That's it for us, though. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Stay cool. It is insanely hot, hence the tank top season. But we'll see you guys next time. Peace.